Two Nations Under Ted, a Ted Lasso podcast, is a Boink Studios production. And now, on with the show.
Welcome back to the show, kids. Two Nations Under Ted, a Ted Lasso podcast. This is episode 3. I'm sorry, season 3. I done screwed it up. Season 3, episode 4. So much for my bold, impressive intro. I'm telling you, man, I may look young and vibrant and full of life and on my first leg. Looks can be deceiving. Perhaps I'm missing a beat. We shall see. We got a little while to go before we wrap this one up. I'm already exhausted. Tom Clark here with you as always, joined by Jay Luft and Joe Higgens. Welcome back, kids. Episode 4. All right. And we're going to crank right along. Can't wait to get into this one. Lots of fun stuff happens in this episode. We say this every time we record, but we're never wrong, are we? No, we're not, because this show continues to deliver into season 3. And guys, as we get into this here today, curious to hear your takes, curious to hear your thoughts coming into this episode. Joe, let's start with you.
This, for me, is the start of the Nate redemption, or Nate realizing that maybe the grass isn't always greener on the other side of the fence, but also it's the start of my favorite pairing in this of Jamie and Roy as frenemy bros. This is where it all sort of properly starts, and we get to see that. And also, this is basically entering the home stretch of the entire thing. This for me is where all the stuff that is this is the start of the dominoes toppling at this point, with Ted and, well, to an extent, Trent, Grim, and stuff. And it's another big setup episode for the rest of the season. But it's the fact that I didn't realize it was this early when Nate kind of goes, "Oh, yeah," which is. I thought it was like a 3 episode arc where he kind of just redeems himself, but I didn't realize it started this early.
Jay, to Joe's point, it did. I got the same impression. It seemed like it should have come later, but and we'll get there, Jay, but there's moments in this where I'm like, wow, we didn't really have an inclination in the first 3 episodes of season 3 that he was even remorseful. And now he is. Did you bump into that at all, Jay, going into this?
Yeah, so it definitely there's a lot of kind of times you sort of see Nate have just a flicker of the old Nate. This in my notes I've compared this to kind of the end of Return of the Jedi, where Vader's starting to doubt whether it being on the dark side is the right path to take, or whether he should throw the Emperor down that shaft. And I think Nate's kind of he's having that. He's having a lot of kind of trepidation, isn't it? And isn't he with it? And there's a lot of moments in this episode in particular where you see that, where he's trying to live up to the hype that Rupert's got for him, but he also feels bad about the way he's left things off with Ted, and he kind of wants to sort of redeem that. But yeah, it does feel like it happens very fast. But obviously it's one of those things where, as you say, for what we know, it could have been bubbling under in the background in other episodes, and we just, because we haven't really seen much of Nate, that's why we haven't really seen too much of him actually kind of questioning himself.
And a lot of it maybe is this idea that we saw him every day in season 1 and 2. And now we don't see him every time. So maybe that's part of the disconnect, perhaps, that we're going, wait a minute, it's too soon. Well, is it? You know what I mean? Because in between episodes, time is passing in their universe, doesn't stand still. So, Jay, you're probably spot on with that. Well, guys, we got a lot to get to, and I can't wait to get cooking. So let's do this, kids. Episode 4, season 3, and I'm telling you, you're going to have fun with this one. Lots of good stuff to get here for sure. This episode's entitled Big Week Original air date, March 29th, 2023. This one's directed by Destiny Akaraga, perhaps. Again, if I'm butchering it, my apologies. We've seen this director before, I think on the previous episode. Story by Brett Goldstein. And yes, 12 episodes in season 3. Let's do this, kids. When last we left the Ted Lasso gang, we saw Zava taking the AFC Richmond club on his back as the team went on a huge winning streak, much to the dismay of Jamie, who agreed to train with Roy in order to improve his game. Colin continued his masquerade as a straight man in front of the team as Ted discovered that Michelle is now dating their former marriage counselor, and Rebecca decided to see her mother's psychic, who gives her some random information that plays out in Sam's new restaurant. We open on Jamie's apartment, and Roy is at his door bright and early, as he promised at the end of the last episode. This is freaking great. And Joe, to your point, this is where the Roy and Jamie stuff really kicks in.
Oh, yeah. It's just
so good.
What are you doing here? It's 4:00. Yeah, but I thought you were joking. No. And then he just puts that headlamp on. Come on. And Jamie just walks off with his ass hanging out.
He's like, how is that a joke? Because it's 4 a.m. Like, he reiterates what time it is. He said, we start at 4 so you can do 3 workouts a day instead of 2. Okay, but it's 4 a.m. He just can't let this go. But what gets him, Jay, is when he says, do you want to be better than Zava or not? And that's what gets Jamie finally moving. Yeah, I mean, this is their arc in this season. We've only just begun. We've only just begun here. This stuff gets so much better. So Roy tells him, now get dressed or I start flicking your balls, which is good. Jamie says, this is perverse. And then when he walks away, yes, he is bottomless. Speaking of the Dark Knight, we get our first look at him. He's got a mock-up of the pitch on a table, much like Ted has in his flat, but Ted's got the Lego thing happening, of course. And on the calendar, and on the calendar, West Ham's game versus Richmond is circled. It's a big deal for Nate, of course. He knocks over the miniature Ted onto the floor and laughs. Then his smile fades, and he picks it up, puts it back on the board, and whispers, there you go. And I'm going, what was that? Like, for me, I mean, maybe for all of us, that was the first time in this season where we're like, wait a minute, did he just feel bad about doing that? Jay, how did that hit you? Do you remember when you first saw this?
Yeah, when I first saw it, I didn't really, like, not that I didn't really, like, take it in as much, but it was just kind of like, he's probably still just got a little bit of kind of, like, regret about how things went. Whereas this time when I watched it, you can kind of see, like, the way Nate's character's kind of developed is obviously when he's in his suit, when he's the manager, he's got like that sort of like front that he puts on where he spits on mirrors and he's like Billy Big Bollocks. And then this time when he's like sat there in his bedroom, his hair's all ruffled up, he's got his little West Ham shirt on, and he's just like he's not trying to impress anybody, he's just being Nathan. As opposed to when he's at the club and he's like the big I am and he's trying to impress Rupert and he's trying to like intimidate all his players and his staff.
It's what they've said all the way through about like the suit and being armor. And then when you take that off, he's still Nate inside. Also, it's Sabutio that he's marking out with. If you're not aware of that, Tom, like a tabletop football game.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Very, 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 very popular in like the 70s and 80s over here. If you haven't seen it, there is a clip of the Sabutio World Cup where a lad from Ireland or Scotland like refuses to shake hands after he gets beat and like packs all his little men up and stomps off. It's hilarious.
And also something that I noticed, of course, this is the morning, so you assume that everyone's getting ready to start their day, but he's already got the colors on of his team. Because remember the jokes in the first 2 seasons was like, is this all you own? Is this all you wear? I think Beard asked him. He's like, well, I've got another one just like it or something. So it's all he wears outside of work. At Ted's place, he wakes up and Sassy is getting dressed. She tells him that that he snored all night and that it was soothing like the sea. Ted comments that he's glad she didn't hear any boat horns, considering how many fried yams he ate the previous night. He then begins to dig a little, maybe to see how interested she is in doing something more serious with him, and basically suggesting, Joe, that they go on a date. Is there a reality in which this would have worked out, even casual relationship? I mean, beyond the sex, or was it just supposed to be this?
It's supposed to be this, isn't it? It's as she says to him, she says, "You're a mess." Like, this is fine for what it is. It's, it's good that we can both sort of do this and still be friends afterwards, and like we have a good time. But you're clearly not right. I'm clearly not right. Like, if we were both together, it would just self-destruct so quickly. She's right in what she's saying, but Ted is just reaching out for any sort of companionship. Basically, he clearly likes her because they get on. They've got a similar sense of humor. But she's just like, no. I'm fairly sure he's asked. Did he not ask this in the hotel as well, or something similar? And she kind of rebuffed it there as well. When they were in Liverpool, I think it was.
I think he's in Liverpool. He's kind of a bit more like freaked out by it, isn't he? Because he's sitting on the chair and he's fully dressed, and
yes,
he's like, "Oh yeah, just like check out this time. Feel free to get room service. It's on the club and all that." But like with this, it felt to me like, obviously, because Ted's very homesick at this point, and he just wants to go home, and it felt like he's trying to sort of establish something to root him in Richmond and keep him there more than like I'm actually thinking, oh yeah, I can see something with Sassy. I think it's more, obviously Ted does have feelings for her and he likes her, but he's more trying to convince himself that he wants to stay in Richmond, as opposed to the fact that he's like horrifically homesick and he just wants to like go back to Kansas.
I'll give you
I
that,
do like that she calls him out on his dreadful puns. And sometimes during the course of doing this show, we've wondered out loud if he is self-aware that he's doing things. Well, now he's let the cat out of the bag, because he says, well, it's tough. Sometimes I just see him there and I got to go take a swing at him. So he's very self-aware. Yes, it's probably second nature, but also he's looking for them whenever he can find them as well.
Oh, yeah. Just to reference... Go on.
I was going to say, I feel like this is like the most serious Ted is in any of the episodes.
Yeah.
Like, you mean like in relation to her?
No, and just in,
all the
throughout
way
the whole
through
episode, he's very stoic and he's very grounded. He's not his usual Ted self.
That's fair.
There is bits of it because he has to. Like you said, he can't turn it off. It is second nature to him, but he isn't zinging everyone like he normally would be. Just also about the Sabutio Lego thing as well. Like, Ted removed Nate and then put him back. It's just a little parallel between the two of them there.
Well
it's
done.
Just a nice little bit.
Didn't think of that.
Well done. Yeah, and you're right. She tells him that that he's a mess, but she's just more of a slight disarray. And she talks about, on the day her ex got remarried, she drank a bottle of red wine through a straw and told her, for some reason that made me laugh, and told her Uber driver that she was in love with him. And then she says, then when he dropped me home, I puked so much my mouth was like an elevator from the goddamn Shining. Knocked my rating down to a 3.9. And Ted goes, ooh. And Sassy goes, fuck you. Why? What's yours? Oh, God, you're a 5, aren't you? Of course you're a 5. How the fuck are you a 5? He says, I don't know. I'm tidy. I say please and thank you. Sometimes I offer to drive if they look tired. That's Ted. That's him. And she responds to that with, oh, you are such a mess. Which very much. He is a mess. I mean, it's a good call. Yeah. What's good here is that when she kisses and wishes him good luck against West Ham, she has to, give him the obligatory fuck Rupert and that shriveled raisin pouch he calls nutsack, which is good. Yeah. And, again, I asked if, what we thought about them possibly. Jay, is that your take as well, that this was just meant to be what it is? I mean, could it have went farther? I don't know.
No, I think it's more, as I say, it felt more like it was just kind of like the sex thing, and they've got like that friendship as well. And as I say, like Ted kind of trying to move that to the next level it felt more like him just trying to have an excuse to stay there as opposed to genuinely wanting something from it.
That's fair. We get a nice little scene when she goes outside to catch her Uber. Nate is right there. So are we to believe that it looks like he was pulling out? Am I wrong in the way he and Ted don't live?
I think he was just turning the corner.
Oh, okay. All right. That makes sense.
Because he drives like from like the background to where Sassy's getting into the cab.
Yeah,
I think just for transitional purposes rather than supposed to have any sort of deep meaning.
When seeing Nate as well is like a blink and you miss it thing, isn't it? Because the speed that actually happens. I do like the way after Sassy's like giving Ted loads of shit about his Uber rating. As soon as she goes in the car, she's being dead nice and friendly.
Yeah. How are you? Yeah.
Oh, he's legacy.
It's just Ted rubbing off on people though. Like he just makes people better people.
It's true. And after Nate drives off, the camera still does that great. You know, camera work in this show continues to be really well done. It keeps panning across, and we go to the park, and Jamie's doing this thing, and Roy's sitting on the bench, and he asks, "Why do you sleep with only a top on?" Because I get cold upstairs and hot downstairs. And Roy reflectively goes, "I get that." Like he's totally understand. Then of course Jamie throws up, and you see Roy wishing good morning to people there in the park, which is nice. After the show kicks off here, we go to Keely's office, and Rebecca is there. Rebecca is looking on her phone, and she says, "Oh, listen to what Rupert said in this one. I truly look forward to seeing my old club again. Richmond are top class." Keely says, "Oh, what a soggy, wet piece of shit." And that's when Shandy comes in. Keely says Shandy came up with this super fun banter promo. It uses all the single players on the team. And she says, "Yeah, the anonymous man that you're bantering with could be a professional footballer." Actually, not a bad idea for a little campaign, right? It doesn't go well.
It's a great idea. It's a brilliant idea. She just literally grabs the wrong end of the stick and runs with it. It's thingy. Poor Shandy.
Shandy. Rebecca says you could tell Rebecca's fishing just a little bit, and that's all. He's the single players. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, Rupert's back under her skin, and also the single players, and we know who she means.
Of course.
Well, she's probably also like thinking about obviously the psychic thing where she gets the green matchbook of Sam in the last episode. So that's why she's like, "Oh, so."
Yeah, I guess. I forgot about the matchbook thing because I hate psychics.
Yeah. Rebecca does as well.
It's understandable.
Shandy tells her, "I don't think Sam's doing it anymore." And then Rebecca kind of looks at Keely, and Keely's like confirming what Shandy just said because she knows what Rebecca's thinking without even asking her a question. Kind of an odd interaction between her and Barbara. And plus we get to see Shandy, which we all thoroughly enjoy. So anyway, yeah.
As much Barbara as she's a terrible, terrible person, Shandy,
she is.
Kind of like, I don't think it's intentional. I think she's just naive as hell. Like,
well, that's fair.
I don't think she's like Keely has grown up and realized that, you know, this doesn't last forever. Your looks won't hang around forever. Whereas Shandy, I don't think has that self-awareness about her.
I think because obviously she's talking about like the way that Keely managed to get out of being like a page 3 girl. And I think she wants to do the same thing, but she's trying to grab the bull by the horns instead of actually like...
Yes, she's running before she can walk.
Yeah. Instead of actually like working hard, she's trying to just grab it and like taking opportunities that maybe she shouldn't be.
Two seasons for Keely to get where she is. Because in the second episode, she's advertising that lion vodka, isn't it, or whatever. It's her dressed up as an animal of some kind, isn't it, in a park? I remember. But yeah, It just took her from there to here. That's 2 years of time, and you can't just show up and yeah, it's not Mad Men.
Right. Barbara's asking for 2 tickets to the Richmond and West Ham game, that Jack's coming in for it. Keely obviously does not know who Jack is, but she says, not a problem, Barbara. I can let you have some seats in my suite. Barbara, that's what Rebecca says. And Barbara says, thank you so much, Rebecca. That's kind of you. That's so kind of you and so efficient. Barbara continues to be an odd bird.
Again, Barbara is just one of those people I'd want to go out for a meal with just to see how she eats her food. Like, if she eats it one bit at a time, like eats all the potatoes first, and then the peas, or whatever. Yeah,
she's so fucking good.
Katie Wicks is tremendous in everything that she's
in. Yeah, she's brilliant. It's the way as well. She's got like a proper like crush on Rebecca. She's like, thank you, Rebecca. Yeah. That's really... And she just goes, Keely.
It's really good. We go to Ted's office next, and this spot is really funny. We've got Beard and Roy at the board, and they're plotting out with Higgins sitting there. Beard says, so the one thing we cannot do against West Ham is the false 9. Roy says, because that's Nate's shit. And Beard says, exactly. So we decided to go with our classic 4-4-2. And Roy says, it was exactly what that little prick expects us to do. Beard says, we do the opposite. 5 up front, full attack. But Nate knows we're going to do that because Nate knows that we're trying to outthink him by thinking like him. Roy says, well, fuck Nate, fuck thinking, and fuck fucking Socrates.
Just, yeah, throwing a random Greek philosopher for some reason.
Random, yeah.
It's proper, like, this bit reminded me really of, like, a Groucho and Chico routine from the Marx Brothers.
I was just going to say that, yeah.
Yeah, of just nothing getting accomplished apart from more nonsense. It's the contract routine from Night at the Opera. Yeah, it's the party in the first part shall be known in this yeah, it's
awesome.
But then they end up just going Nate's false 9. Like it's they keep
right back where they started
as well. Yeah, it's just and Ted sat there with a big grin on his face as well, like he's enjoying the show.
No, Ted's not in that, but is he?
Is he not? Oh, it's Higgins.
He comes in right after. Yeah. Roy says, "Wah fucking law." Higgins says, "Brilliant." Roy says, "It's mostly Beard's idea." Beard says, "No, it was a group effort." So I like how those two guys click and how they're getting along now. Higgins says, "I do have one question." Beard goes, "Of course." Roy, instead of saying "of course," goes, "Who fucking cares?" Like that's his way of saying it. You know. Higgins says, "Do you think Zaba will do it?" And then they pause, and Roy goes, "Fuck!" and just tosses the whiteboard down to the floor.
After all that back and forth, they hadn't took the one thing that they have to consider is that Zaba isn't going to want to play back. Yeah.
It's it's a tough spot there, Jay, because you're winning. You're winning because of this guy, but because he's the only one that ever gets the ball, you can't draw up any plays. You can't get creative. You can't do anything because you have to feed it to him. I imagine that would be, while you're winning and it's awesome, you're also kind of handicapping your team to a large extent, aren't you?
Yeah, it doesn't really leave them with much of a plan B, which obviously, like, Jamie's trying to become the plan B, but I'm obviously we kind of see that when Zaba is no longer a part of the team later in the season. But yeah, it's I think so. I've got a theory about like this with the whole like the tactics thing with Zaba. I think it's based on like a real life thing with Zlatan.
Of course.
Which I do have a quote for. So
yes.
when he was at Barcelona, he was managed by Pep Guardiola, who obviously Manchester City manager, might see him later in the season. And they fell out because he didn't like Pep's tactics. So Pep just put him on the bench. He'd just bring him on as a substitute every now and again. So when he was asked about this years later, Zlatan's quote was, and I quote, when you're buying me, you are buying a Ferrari. You put premium petrol in the tank. You hit the motorway and you step in on the gas. Guardiola filled me up with diesel and took me for a spin in the countryside. You should have bought a Fiat.
Oh.
So basically, it's kind of like whenever Zlatan goes to a club, if they're not like kind of like fitting the team around him, he's not a happy boy.
Yeah.
So I think that's what they're kind of alluding to with Zava, where it's like will he actually do it? And obviously with Zava like coming in and like saying, oh yeah, this is the team we're going to be playing, and just putting like him and then all the other players behind him. But yeah, it's kind of like it's a weird kind of paradox, because obviously you've got like a player who's that good, but then if he can't adapt to certain tactics, is he really that good?
Is Pep
all the trick plays from the first 2 seasons? You know, the leaky tap and the Mexican wheelbarrow and all that stuff, or whatever. I can't remember the names off the top of my head. But yeah, they had all of those and they've had them locked in for ages, and they can't use any of them because Zava.
Just give the ball to Zava and watch him.
Give the ball to Zava, yeah.
Is Pep a really good coach? Like considered one of the best, or is he? It seems like in a previous episode we kind of alluded to the idea of he came along to teams at the right time in right circumstances, or is he the other guy that builds teams up?
A little bit of both. So he built up when he was at Barcelona, which was kind of like the job that put him on the map. He went from being like I think it was the assistant manager, or he was like the youth coach, and then he essentially became the manager, and he brought all that youth up to the first team with him. And because he already had all that experience with them, it was like he just like breathed like new life into the club. Bayern Munich, he went there, didn't really have a great deal to do. He bought a few players, but he already had pretty much a well-made team, and he just had to win games. Man City was a bit of a funny one because he had a good team already, but they were aging, so he had to pretty much rebuild. So I'd say he's, regardless of like, obviously he's being given a lot of he's being given like the best tools to do the job, but also you've still got to have the ability to do the job. So it's one of them. He's probably the best manager in the world at the moment, I'd say, or certainly in the argument for it. Can't think of many who are better than Pep Guardiola. There's a reason, other than money, that like Manchester City are just winning everything every year, all the time.
Yeah, really, yeah. So this is where Ted comes in, star of the show, kids. He's back again. He comes in and he asks what's going on. Sees the board on the floor, and Beard tells him Roy doesn't think we can beat Nate. And so then, Beard and Roy kind of go back and forth at each other, and Higgins is sitting there kind of in shock that he was kind of thrown under the bus. They have this little back and forth, and Ted goes, "Oh, y'all pointing more fingers than Ganesha giving directions. Now look, you fellas need to calm down and just kiss." Beard says he's right. And a kiss, of course, he means keep it simple, smarty pants. He says an answer will show up, don't worry. But until it does, here's a question for y'all. Am I a mess? Sassy ended up spending the night last night, and yep, it's really good. And then, of course, Ted says, no, hush your butts. Again with the hush your butts. That ain't the headline. Well, I asked her out on a proper date this morning. She turned me down cold, and she said I was, quote, a mess. And then, of course, Beard and Higgins do the O thing, this time instead of ooh. And Higgins says, it sounds like a case for the Diamond Dogs. And Beard goes, release the hounds. And this gets to be utterly ridiculous. They're barking like dogs and howling, going in circles. Like
Roy's just stood there, hating every minute of it.
He just walks out, doesn't he? Goes and sits down at his desk. He's like, I'm not part of this.
Oh, and I think it's Ted that gets right back to the same spot he was in. I forget who it was that did it, but Roy goes, fuck's sakes. And yeah, so here we go. Beard says, Beard tells him yes, that, he is a mess, and Ted asks him to expound. He goes, well, we're playing Nate this week. You're acting like it's not a big deal. Nothing's different, that he didn't hurt you. Ted says, look, we ain't talking about Nate right now. I'm asking you if you think I'm a mess, all right? Higgy Pie, what do you think? Higgins says, I think I don't understand how you're not pissed off with Nate. Thank you. Beard says we have a saying in Codependence Anonymous. Codependence Anonymous. Jane makes me go with her.
Jane
By the
makes
way,
me go
that
with
was
her. A great
that's a
setup
great
and joke. Yeah.
Wonderful. Pain is like carbon monoxide. Expressing it to the right person who hurts you is like opening a vent, but holding it in will poison you. Ted whistles and says, I like that, but Nate didn't hurt me. Roy from the next room yells, bullshit!
Bullshit.
It's good.
Yeah. Like, even though he's not prepared to be in the room making the dog noises, he doesn't want to be left out of it. Like, he's still, they've got him. He's on the hook.
I like the fact, like, before, obviously, they start the Diamond Dogs meeting when they all go, ooh, like, Roy joins in with it. And then as soon as it becomes Diamond Dogs, he's like, I'm done with this shit.
And he says, hey, Roy, you want to get in on this? What Beard says. They all go, and they start like kiss like a little dog to try to get him into the room.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
Oh, it's so good. We go to the locker room, and the weekly roundup is on the TV. The match of the week is clearly Richmond and West Ham, and the commentary is, I know it's been a strong start to the season for both these teams, but I think the Hammers are the favorites going into the London Derby based on the tactical acumen of the Wonder Kid, Nathan Shelley. They all boo and they groan. And is it Michael, I guess, is on? Says
Jermaine Genius.
There you go. Says Shelley is brilliant. There's no doubt about that. But Zava, he is a genius. I like the Greyhounds. For this one, the players cheer. Isaac liked that one as well. And that isn't this the guy that was on the TV? Isn't that the one that Collins had the relationship with, or am I crazy?
No.
No,
is it not?
No,
I thought that was him.
That's just an ex-footballer.
Okay, I got you. Because he says what threw me there, because he looked kind of similar, but what threw me there was Isaac said, that's my guy, and Collins says, no, you can't have him. He's mine.
Yeah, and then Trent's like
Trent
the way,
was,
the way this is kind of shot with Trent in this scene's brilliant, because obviously he's observing everything that's kind of going on, but he's literally like his role in this is a fly on the wall, and it's that you can notice, he's there, you notice he's there, but he's just taking in everything, and it's so good.
There's a very subtle little raise of the eyebrow that he does
when Colin says the line.
When Colin says it, and it's such overcompensation from Colin as well, though. Like, no one else is doing those bits. Like, it's always him, and it's like, all right, Colin, you get it.
Hiding in plain sight, isn't it?
But it's too much. It's over egging the pudding. It's like, yeah, for me anyway. It's just no one else does that sort of. I don't know. Now we know what we know. It feels very abundant on his part.
We don't want to spoil it. We don't want to spoil it, but what I was going to say was, when this was happening in real time, did you guys kind of suspect that Trent was going to do here what he kind of had to do to Ted in publishing the story? Did you think that he's going to tell the whole world that Colin's gay?
No. He kind of swore him to secrecy, didn't he? A little bit. Like, he only told Ted because he likes Ted. He likes Colin, and it's not his job. I believe it's like the worst thing you can do for a gay person is to out them before they're ready to be outed.
Yeah, I think because obviously Trent is, we find out in a later episode Trent's also gay, and he's kind of like, they do a very good kind of bait and switch, I think, where they obviously, like in the last episode, you see Trent seeing Colin, and he's got like that look on his face. It's like, oh shit, like Trent's gonna like break it, and then obviously the planting the seeds, but then it's such a nice like bait and switch, because obviously it's us having our doubts that Trent's genuine and he's changed, when in reality he has, and he's a much better person because he left the Independents.
And I like this spot here. Zorro tells him, don't worry about it, they got work to do. Zava, who's been there the entire time, speaks up. He says he is correct. We must ignore these talking faces, even when they're in our favor.
These talking faces. Like, he doesn't know what a television is. He says,
thank you, Zorro. And Zorro says, actually, it's pronounced Zorro. And you could feel the locker room go, because he questioned him. He says, Zava goes, why? And he's like, I don't know, because that's how my parents say it, I guess. He goes, my friend, you can be whoever you want to be. I let all of my children name themselves once they reach the age of 7. That is why my eldest is called Smingus Dingus. And then he hits him with, dream big, and you may never wake up.
Again,
What does that even mean?
It's just nonsense, isn't it? It's new age nonsense. It's meant to sound great. I mean, Smingus Dingus is a tremendous name. I think later on we get a bit more of his kids' names as well.
There is a callback to his kids' names later on.
But yeah, and Zorro is very like, oh wow, this is like his like, you know, the scales have fallen from his eyes and he can see clearly now. And it's nonsense, mate. It's crystal skulls. It's wacky. Oh,
it's really good. And so Zava has to walk out on that when he tells Zorro thanks him and he walks out. And Jamie goes, Jesus. I can't believe I'm about to say this, but hey, lads, I agree with Zava. Yes, it's a big fucking game, but we've just got to focus and do what we do. Isaac agrees and he goes to slap the believe sign. He says, we got to believe and believe. And suddenly half of it drops.
Oh, this bit. And they're all in stunned silence. And then he hits Jamie. What was that for? I wondered if I'd had the power to cut things in half. Well, why did you hit me?
I was just like, sorry, bruv. I didn't think it through. So we didn't know up until this point that they didn't know, did we?
No.
Well, Ted's the only person who knew because he found the sign. And everyone had already left to celebrate. Ted goes in his office, finds the sign on his desk, and then clearly Ted, being Ted, fixed it so like the team wouldn't find out.
Yeah.
It even feels like Ted covering that up, and obviously with the footage as well, which we'll get to a bit later. I think Ted is telling the truth when he says he's not mad at Nathan, because it's like he's trying to protect him in this situation.
That's fair. Yeah.
He thinks he can still be redeemed.
Oh, Ted! No one's beyond redemption in Ted's eyes. Yeah,
it's true.
I think Ted maybe feels a little bit of guilt for how Nate perceived his treatment of him as well. But again, because Nate is essentially a child and can't function without constant appraisal from an authority figure, which I don't think Ted would have ever had before, unless it was an actual child. He didn't know how to. You know, that's how you treat Nate. You have to constantly give him praise.
Yeah.
It's a weird one with this one. I think, I think he's just. It'll all come full circle. Like you said, an answer will present itself.
Yeah.
With Nate, and
for sure,
it does.
Barbara Catch pulls the hanging half down off the wall and says, "Fellas, someone ripped this in half. The locker room is beside itself." And Trent has just been observing and taking it all in. We see Nate pacing back and forth outside the restaurant where he took his parents for their anniversary. He finally goes in after trying to open the wrong door. He's awkward as ever, kids. He goes in to speak to Jade. Bit. Yeah. And it's utterly ridiculous.
I thought he was walking up and down in the vain hope that she would notice him. I didn't think it was like a stress thing. I think he was doing it in a sort of, look at me, I'm a big important man. But she's cleaning menus in the most bewildering way possible. Yeah.
I read it that he was trying to build up his courage to.
Possibly. I read it as he was trying to get her to notice him.
I feel like, because obviously Nate kind of like did his whole like big I am thing to her before anyone else, didn't he? And I think like she's kind of like his kryptonite, almost like she's able to kind of just, she's like she's seen him be like do that and be like the big I am, and now she's like I'm not taking any shit off him. I'm just not even gonna humor him.
But she saw him be the big I am, and then his parents still treated him like a child though. Like
exactly.
They wanted, they were like, we'll be out of there in 20 minutes. Like he's all bluster, like. But again, he just comes in. I think she does it on purpose just to wind him up. Like,
Oh yeah, she
Really?
does.
yeah, I think she knows who
She
he is. He's in there all the time, isn't he? Like,
That's what she said when the manager goes, "Do you know who this is?" And she goes, "Yeah, it's Jathan Jelly."
yeah, see, Jathan's not even a name.
And he looks at her and goes to correct it. He goes, "Oh fuck it! Like this guy's blowing smoke up my ass. It's fine."
But
He's so
again, that
pleasant
feeds
to her.
back. Oh, he is. I know, but I don't know whether it comes across as slightly smarmy as well for me. But it
That's
feeds
fair.
back to that first bit where he was trying to book a table and she couldn't get his name right. I think it's the name thing. I think it's just her running joke with him.
Yeah, I think as well though, like the reason he's acting the way he is now is maybe again it goes back to him feeling remorseful about the way he's acting and the person he's become. Like obviously he was a dickhead to her when he was like, "We're gonna have that table in the window. You're being a bitch." And maybe like because she was being difficult, but like she wasn't like maliciously being difficult. She was just being difficult.
Malicious
And
compliance.
Yeah, and he was like, he was basically just an arsehole to her to try and make his parents seem like think that he's a bigger
Proud
deal
of
than he
him?
actually
Yeah.
is. Yeah,
But looking at his parents, they wouldn't want their child behaving like that anyway.
Well,
He's a
his
very
dad's just
confused
not
wee boy.
impressed, isn't he?
No, but yeah, I think there's a certain amount of sort of Rupert style influence creeping into Nate.
Yeah,
And, I kind of felt bad for the guy because she completely no-sells everything he says until the manager says, anything you need, you got it, from one manager to another. And Nate has to look at her, and says, yeah, well, it's not quite the same.
No.
And I'm thinking, fuck.
The other thing though as well is when the manager brings up Richmond, he Nate like kind of like shrinks into himself and becomes like bumbling Nate again. It's like all his confidence just evaporates when he mentions it because again he's thinking about like the way he left, how he left things. Obviously he's remorseful towards the way he treated Ted, and he's that reminder's kind of made them like panic.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, reminds him of who he used to be, I guess.
Yeah.
Some way. He offers to pay, and Derek tells him his money's no good there. He tells Jade, never charge, except for the booze. Got to charge for the booze. Nate goes, I didn't order any booze. It's 12:30. Like,
I love that.
And it's good.
That manager guy as well is the most annoying person in the world.
I like him though.
He was who Dr. Sharon was sleeping with in the first episode, isn't he?
Is it?
Is it?
Oh,
Yeah.
Right. That makes a bit of.
I don't think I knew that.
No, I didn't put that two together, to be honest. It's a kind of blink and you'll miss it sort of bit, but yeah.
Yeah, it's just a weird little link.
Wow.
Man. Jay, you have put both of us to shame multiple times. That is a great catch. Wow. That's good. So Nate's left with Jade again, who's still not talking and giving him that look like, I don't care who you are. I don't care anything about you. He goes to leave, and of course, he can barely get out of the doors with all the food. Back in the AFC Richmond locker room, Shandy is shooting the banter ads that she was talking about earlier. Danny's up, and he tells her he's nervous. She says, just look into the camera and act like you're talking to an old friend. My oldest friend is Javier. Great. How long have you known Javier? Only a couple of months, but he turns 108 years old next week.
Again, just an amazing joke. Like, and Danny's just like boyful exuberance of it sells it so well.
I just like the idea of Danny just wandering around and like making friends with an old man.
Yeah, he's a puppy, isn't he? Essentially, like
He's probably just gone to the shop to get some milk or something, and he's got talking to some old man in the queue.
And the only time I've ever cared about Shandy as the character is when he says that, she goes, perfect. Like she doesn't know how to respond. Just that little hesitation. Danny gets in front of the camera. They've blurred his face, of course. It's part of the shtick. And he says, "You may not know who I am, but I think the most beautiful parts of a woman are her flaws." And the guy was like, "Wow, that's really good." Keely comes in and has brought Shandy some coffee. Shandy seems to actually be serving a purpose here, which is nice.
Yeah, she's good at this.
She's doing a good job, yeah. It's so Rose's turn next, and he tells Shandy that he wants to be called Van Damme now.
Boink Studios is the home of Tom Clark's Main Event, Tom Clark's 6M podcast, and Two Nations Under Ted, a Ted Lasso podcast. Visit the site today for links to every podcast platform, social media, special announcements, and a lot more. Check out the site and bookmark today, boinkstudios.com.
He says to the camera, "You don't know who I am, but I'm looking for someone who likes short walks on the beach so we can spend more time, you know." Oh my God. All the guys snicker.
He looks like a fucking serial killer when you see his face when he says that as well.
Yeah.
It's good. The guys quiz him about the name change, and he tells them he loves Jean-Claude Van Damme and that Zava told him he could be anything he wanted to be. It's Jamie's turn next, and Shandy says he's so fucking hot. Keely just stares at him and then starts talking. There are moments when she looks at Jamie, Jay, that lead me to believe, not that she still has something, but like she's got a soft spot for him, Jay, no matter what.
I think she's pointing out all his flaws, isn't she? That he had when they were together, but then she's realizing how much he's grown since they broke up.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it's like. It's like, oh yeah, like she was originally attracted to him just for his looks, but like thought he was a bit of a dickhead because he was immature, and now he's grown up. And it's like, oh, actually, he's actually like not as bad as I thought he was.
Yes.
But as well, like it's like she says he's self-centered, and then it shows him, and he's like asking the girl who's like setting up like his mic and that, just, "Oh, you all right? Yeah, am I okay?" And like he apologizes for like messing with or something, and like literally, it's like perfectly timed out where everything she's like he doesn't take accountability, and then he apologizes. It's never his fault, and he's like, oh yeah, he only thinks it's a dick, and then he's just like having a laugh and a joke with the person who's setting him up. It's like, oh, that's great. Good old Jamie.
Shandy's like, "I just want to know if I can bang him." Like, that's all she wanted to, it's the only thing she wanted to know.
He was just like, "Well, you have to ask him that, won't you?"
Yeah. We go to Ted's office, and Beard, Trent, and Roy are huddled around a laptop. They show Ted the footage of Nate trying to climb up the wall, tear down the Believe sign, and he finally gets it down. It's comical. Yeah.
He falls off the office chair, kills me every time.
Yeah.
It's like, I think, Joe, you must have said earlier about him being a child. Like, this is a petulant child pitching a fit.
This is
like,
a tantrum.
Yeah. It's a tantrum. Yeah.
It does a really good job.
He does. He's fantastic. Yeah.
I was going to say, it does a really good job of setting up, though, like Nate's redemption, because he's gone from being like this sort of like mustache twirling villain who we all hated to, in that one instance, it just completely defangs him, and it's like, yeah, it's still soft shite Nate, isn't it?
It's just a tanty, yeah. When there's no one there as well.
Yeah. Trying to jump off a wheelie chair and going flying.
Never ever top safety tip: never stand on a wheelie office chair when you're trying to do stuff, because you will fall off and break your legs. Right, it's how a lot of episodes of Casualty start like that. Yeah.
Quick random story, nothing to do with it, but sort of. I worked in a situation years ago where we were down to just 2 members of management. We were short one guy for months, and I was exhausted, had worked a lot of hours, tired. Finally got a new guy in. On his first day, he stood in the middle of a folding table. Not a table, but a folding table, like the pro wrestling put him through the table.
Yeah, like a pasting table, yep.
This guy's 250-some pounds because he was trying to reach something up here. He stood in the middle of the table. It breaks his arm. First day in the store, broken arm for the next 8 weeks. I'm like, you know how long I've wanted the day off? Thanks. I appreciate you. Jeez,
don't come back. Yeah.
Telling you. Ridiculous. So Ted wants to know.
When I worked in supermarkets, I didn't do some more shit like that.
Oh my God. It's
As a younger man, I took ridiculous risks instead of just going getting the ladder properly or whatever, because it's just easier, isn't it? But yeah, as a man of a certain age now, you're like, nope, I'm getting all the safety gear on to change this light bulb.
I mean, I was 30 when I was climbing cages like I was fucking King Kong.
It's just easier though, isn't it? Like, yeah,
holding a girl in one arm, swatting away. Yeah,
couldn't be bothered like going across the room to get a ladder. That's fucking chumps.
What am I, a little girl? I can do this. Ted wants to know where the footage came from. Roy points back to Trent and says, this fucking legend thought to pull the security footage when we told him about the sign. Trent says, I guess you can take the boy out of journalism, but you can't take journalism out of the boy. Roy says, right, you fucking ruined it now. The point is, the answer we were looking for has arrived. Ted says, what are you talking about? Beard goes, video like this can motivate a team, perhaps. Ted thinks about it, and he says, thank you for your help, Trent. May a young Robert Redford portray you in a film someday. Trent says, probably Dustin Hoffman, but then he wishes him good night. You can tell everybody's starting to wind down, and you can tell that Ted's probably not having this. Beard sticks around and says, I was thinking about your sassy situation. Jane's sister's in town. Ted goes, no, thank you, coach. He says, that's the right answer. And it's that quick. It's that quick.
Did either of you get onto the book Beard was reading?
I did not.
I did.
It's because it's who the episode's dedicated to, isn't it?
It's the Beckham experiment.
Yeah, but I thought at the end of this episode is dedicated to what was it?
I missed that. Was it the guy who wrote it?
I believe so. Yes, Grant Wall.
Yeah, I think that was who. I'll double check now.
He's Coach Beard is shown holding a copy of the Beckham experiment.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I missed
Grant
that.
Wall.
It's one of those with Beard's books. There's always little Easter egg breadcrumbs in there, like.
Oh yeah, he passed away around the time this episode would live.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, so the Beckham experiment is actually it's very important to this season in particular. So it was essentially when David Beckham went to LA Galaxy, he had a journalist, Grant Wall, follow him around and like kind of document his first year, like Trent's doing with the club. And obviously like interviewed the coach, like a lot of coaches. David Beckham himself was like the main focus of it, but he interviewed like the coaches in the teams, a lot of his teammates, and it become more about like the actual what Beckham was trying to do with the league than it did about the actual team itself, and that's why it would become the Beckham experiment. But the thing that's interesting is obviously with Trent doing exactly the same thing, and it's almost like Beard's kind of like reading this to see what like Trent's going to portray the team like. Not how it ends, just portray the team, but like in the book. But as I say, it's very much about David Beckham going from living in Madrid at the time and obviously England to going over to America, kind of like Ted did with going from Kansas to the UK.
Interesting. That was a good poll. I didn't get that.
It literally, it was only that I could see the title and I was like, that says Beckham, what the hell? Because I thought it was David Beckham's autobiography. And then I searched it and I was like, it's not going to be Beckham's autobiography because that doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things.
No.
Whereas this kind of does. And the other way of looking at it as well is obviously comparing Beckham going to LA Galaxy to Zaba going to Richmond. That's the other kind of thing you can kind of take from it, where Beard's obviously like looking at the impact of like a megastar joining a team full of not so megastars. Because when Beckham joined LA Galaxy, they didn't really have many big players. They had a few, but no one on the level of David Beckham. He was like the biggest star in football at the time.
Interesting. Well, we can see that Ted is, again, not so sure about this idea about exposing the Nate thing. He just stares at the flash drive and the laptop. And then, speaking of Nate, we go to Nate's office, and he's looking at social media on his phone. Who would have thunk it?
Yeah.
Who would have thunk it? And the headline is Lasso versus the Wonder Kid. Rupert comes by and says he sees that Nate is burning the midnight oil. Nate apologizes for the smell. Nate hit him with a Tedism.
Yeah.
And Rupert never got it. Yes. And he doesn't get it. And Nate tells Rupert, he said, I just haven't seen Ted since I left, and we didn't leave on the best of terms, and I feel like I owe him an apology or something. And Rupert says, you did what was best for you. What were you meant to do? Hang around supporting Ted for the rest of your life? I don't think so. You've done nothing wrong, Nathan. I promise you, you earned this job. Nate says, well, so what do I say when I see him? He says, you say nothing apart from hello. You look him in the eye, you shake his hand, and then you beat him, and then we go and celebrate. There's some problematic things here with Rupert's dialogue, but none of this suggests I am the devil. It's actually smart business guy talking. But when you know who it's coming from, it's the devil, right? But like, he's not necessarily telling Nate, we have to destroy and dismember and devour. Do you know what I mean? Like
this bit's fine. It's when Nate afterwards goes, oh, okay, Rupert. And he goes, Mr. Mannion.
Oh,
Yeah.
Like, he still has to have that. But then, until he proves himself, like, it's... What he's saying is fine, yeah. He's like, you don't owe him nothing. Like, what? The past is the past. You just go out and do your job. But then Rupert's like, oh, thanks, new father figure. And he's like, no, we're not there yet.
Nate's missing the leadership and friendship he had with Ted, and he's trying to have with Rupert. And that's not going to happen, Jay, because Rupert's a shitbag after all.
Yeah.
Same.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because obviously then this kind of like goes straight into the scene with Ted and Rebecca. And it's like night and day, their relationships, but also because of obviously the bad blood with Rebecca and Rupert, they're basically given the same message just in different ways, but neither in helpful ways.
No. It's two people giving incredibly toxic advice just out of their hatred for the other person and dragging two other innocent parties into their blood feud. Like, it's it is ridiculous. But again, it is just like it's even in the set design of Rupert of Nate's office. It's very sort of Death Starry. It's very clinical and clean, and Ted's is very sort of friendly and welcoming. It's just the disparity between the two people.
Yeah.
Very true. Yeah. Good call. Yeah. So when Rebecca stops in, she goes, working late or hardly working? Ted says, I don't think that's how the joke goes. She goes, she's like, what joke? Like, she has no clue. She says, never mind. Yeah. And then she goes to leave. She sees Ted is bothered. She asks him if everything's okay. And so he asks her, am I a mess? And she says yes, and that's why they get along. Rebecca lets on that Saxy's already told her, and she then asks Ted if he's all right, and he says, yeah, I'm good. She then says Oklahoma. Nice callback to when Ted told her about his marriage counseling sessions and how it was a safe word to signal the other person had to tell the truth. Ted says, I'm a work in progress. Which is, yeah. She tells him good night.
He doesn't tell her the truth, does he?
No.
He doesn't
that's
say
fair.
Why. He doesn't actually say why. But again, maybe that's because obviously, like, he's taught that, like, he associates that with the marriage counseling, and now his marriage counselor is dating his wife or his ex-wife.
Yeah, so that's a lie. It was, you could see that as a betrayal. Yeah.
Yeah. But maybe it's kind of triggered him and he doesn't want to talk about it. So he's just like, yeah, everything's fine.
Hey,
interesting.
You know, he knows that she's concerned about this because it's Rupert and it's West Ham and everything. So he stops her and he says, you already won. You know, you got that turkey out of your life. The only thing she says to him is beat them. And he just tells her good night. So, you know, there again, we know without her being a clinically evil shitbag like her ex is, she's still the boss. She still wants to win. And I think maybe that character, any given moment, even though she believes in Ted, is still like, God, I really need you to take this seriously. I really need you to focus. Like, and, you know, she trusts him. But again, she's a businessman as well. And it's hard to not, you know what I mean? Like, we got to win this.
Yeah. But I think it feeds back to when they were in Keely's office as well, though. And she's going, and then he said this, and then he's done this. He's got back under her skin. Like, he's still there. He's always the ghost at the feast. He's always going to be, and this is just to rub his face into it. Like
now he's one of the direct competitors, isn't he?
Yeah, and he's done it deliberately.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, of course.
And yeah, it's just going to give him more, smarmy bragging points if West Ham win, and it's just easier to not have that conversation by beating him.
Mm.
Because she wouldn't go over and go, better luck next time. Would she just be like, that's it, done? Like, just to see the look on his face of him being beaten. Whereas he'll use it as a stick to beat her with. It's the same problems, just handled differently by opposite people.
It's true. So we get to the big point of this particular episode, kids. It's game time. The AFC Richmond guys are coming off the bus as Rebirth of Slick. Cool Like That by Diggable Planets is playing in the background. Zava's walking by himself. Everybody's moving in slow motion. It's smooth. It's nice. It's sweet to look at. It's very cool. Until Will comes off the bus and drops all the bags and is struggling to pick them up and catch up to the team. Aren't people like clapping when he finally gets them all up off the ground?
He's waving as he's going and stuff as well. Like, poor Will.
I know, right? Keely and Rebecca. By the way, everybody, be careful how much you tease that kid, because, hey, I'm just saying. But, he's a little bit more well-adjusted, I believe. Keely and Rebecca have arrived at the stadium. Keely says, do I look all right? And Rebecca says, of course you do. Why? She says, well, if Jack actually shows up, I want him to think that I look mysterious and powerful, dynamic, all that. Rebecca says, you are mysterious, powerful, and dynamic. Keely says, shit, I'm nervous. I think I need to go and reapply my lip liner, which is another callback to when they were talking about how do you tell a guy you're going to the restroom. Usually I have to go reapply my lip liner. So that's what she does here. Yep. Rebecca sees Rupert and Bex together, and it's a big, uneasy thing, but it's been much worse than this. The truth is, this was almost civil. Almost. A little bit. I do like what Bex said to Rupert about Rupert, because he says that his kid is up and walking around, she's walking now and everything, and says, what is it? Drooling and pooing like her father, which was nice little line. And you can't see that he's bothered, but he'll be bothered later for sure. Keely's in the restroom and discovers that a certain time of the month has approached. Mm-hmm. It's upon us. It's upon her. Yes. So, but, and of course she's got nothing. She's not prepared. And this is where we meet who we don't know we're going to meet. There's a hand that comes over to offer a tampon for assistance. And of course she thanks this person. We don't know who this person is. We find out later.
Shoes are the giveaway.
That's it.
But also Keely just chatting away to a person in the toilet. It's like, that's one of those women things that men do not do. Talk to anyone in the toilet.
No, never.
No.
Never.
But she's just chatting away as well. She's just like, I mean, it is what it is. Like, you know what I mean? But she's telling her a life story. And it's like, I'm just trying to go to the toilet, mate. It's just Keely.
Did you notice that her purse looks like a Muppet? It's like a big pink furry thing.
I did not know.
It's like a big powder poof or something. It's just, yeah, ridiculous. Ted is getting on the elevator with West Ham personnel. It's awesome. The elevator's filling up. And he makes small talk with a tall guy. He asks if his dad was a tree. Ted being Ted. When the doors open, as you see people filtering off, Nate has turned around and is facing the wall.
Trying to hide. Like a child would. Like, if I can't see you, you can't see me. Like,
yeah. I love the way this is.
He asks everyone in the lift, who do you hope wins? West Ham. It's like, yeah, that's a stupid question.
Of course.
But yeah, Nate stood there and he's like, "Oh, didn't see you," and I'm like, "Oh."
Ridiculous. Yeah. Again, like a big kid, I think that's the thing we keep coming back to. He's asked him how he's been, and Nate says he's been okay, and Ted's generally happy to see him because, even if he wasn't a nice guy, the best way to kill your enemies is with kindness.
Mm-hmm.
And Nate is a half second away from apologizing and was going to till the doors open, and there's the Emperor cloaked in black. And, of course, Nate comes off the elevator. It's freaking ridiculous.
Ted's just like, "Okay, well, I'll see you later." He's just, yeah. Never let him know they've got to you.
He tells Rupert, he says, "Nice to see you again." And Rupert's like, "Good luck." I'm like, why can't you just accept the fact this is a nice guy? He doesn't have an agenda here. You kidding me?
That's not the world Rupert works in, is it?
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. Keely walks up to Higgins, Rebecca, Shandy, Barbara, and a woman that's introduced as Jack Danvers. This is Jodie Balfour. I don't know anything about this actress, if I'm being honest. What do you guys know her from other than this? Or do you?
I don't. I'm just gonna have a look. Just have a look now, see what she's in. But I wasn't. She does have a bit of like quite a recognizable face, but
yeah,
I couldn't.
We talked about this season. We got 3 new characters, and of the 3, there was one I wasn't crazy about. This is her. I'm not crazy about the Shandy character, but I'm not crazy about Jack either.
It feels very sort of
rushed.
thrown in.
Yeah.
Like to give Keely something to do for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
She plays Jackie Kennedy in one episode of The Crown. Yeah. I think she's just one of those people. She's been in loads of stuff.
She's in a show called Relic. That's Killer Backwards.
Shut up. It's
I
not
knew
the time
that.
and place for that.
Genuinely, she's in a show called Relic.
She is, yes, but this is not the time and place.
That was a pro wrestling gimmick, wasn't it?
Yeah.
In TNA? Yeah, I thought so.
In TNA, yeah.
Yep.
It's out to the Black Ring.
Yeah, that's right. And Higgins is telling that weird riddle slash joke.
This is the locker room level of just what was it? It's a father and son are in a car accident. The father dies instantly. The son's taken to the hospital. The surgeon says, "I can't operate on this man. He's my son." And they all go, "How?" He goes, "How is this possible?" And they all go, "Is it because she's a woman?" And then Rebecca goes, "He's gay." And I was like, Barbara goes, "Possibly a sperm donor." And Shandy, "They all live in a simulation." I'm like, it's, it's, and then Leslie, and then Higgins just goes like, "Yeah, it doesn't really work now, does it?" And then he just walks off as well. He's like, but again, like the answers they give are quite like Keely's worked it out. Keely knows it. Rebecca, progressive woman, they're gay. Shandy, they live in a simulation. The most insane answer you could give.
Of course. And he asks if Jack is short for Jacqueline. Jack says no, it's short. She says it's not short for Jacqueline. My father wanted a boy.
Yeah.
And Higgins says, "I'm going to go sit down now outside now because he's out. He's out."
I do love the fact that Barbara is following Rebecca around like a bad smell as well. Like she's in a tractor beam locked onto her, and it's just
Barbara's got so much hero worship for Rebecca.
She does that big weird laugh at her, doesn't she? Like she does a bit of a joke and she just laughs a bit too long.
It's outstanding.
Shandy hits her the best second little spot of the entire episode for her when she says, "Barbara's obsessed with Rebecca. I hope she doesn't try and kill her and wear her skin as a suit." It's good.
Well, this is kind of the first instance where you get an inkling that Keely's like sort of souring on Shandy because like she looks at her as if to kind of go, "What?"
Yeah.
It's I mean, she's tried to hide Shandy from people in the past, hasn't she? Like it's
but then also that's like totally something Keely would have said in season 1.
Yeah, that's true.
There's a time and a place for it, and it's not when you're in front of the person who's put the money up for your company. Like it's
absolutely.
Yeah, that's true. We see the pub, and a guy comes in wearing a West Ham shirt. May growls at him that it's a Richmond pub. Baz tells her, "Oh, don't worry, May. He's with me." And they all just stare at him, and Baz eventually just yells at the guy to get the fuck out.
It's his mate, and he's just like his mate he's not seen in ages.
Isn't it? Well, I thought it was like a mate from work or something because he doesn't know the other two.
No,
Baz has a job now.
Oh, he does, yeah. But
that's right.
He's gonna fuck up.
You think Baz would have told his friend, "You can't be wearing West Ham shirt to the pub, man."
Yeah.
Back at the stadium.
Risky business going into a pub in opposite teams' colours.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. Back at the stadium, we have Chris and Arlo's on the call. Arlo says, "A full house for today's battle between West Ham United and Zava's AFC Richmond."
Yeah.
All right. A win would take either team to the top spot in the table, knocking mighty Manchester City off number 1. Should be a tight match. Any predictions? Chris said, "I stopped making predictions, Arlo, because I was never wrong. Got to the point I was worried I was the one making things happen." I had to use that.
Because then he goes, good. "Oh, that's interesting," and he goes, "I knew you were going to say that." And dumb throwaway bits, but they're very good.
Yeah, that's really good. The West Ham crowd is chanting. We've established that several teams, their fans chant different songs as tradition for a lot of clubs. West Ham is no different. Jay, what are they chanting here?
"I'm forever blowing bubbles," because that's the song that's associated with the club for some reason.
That's beyond odd.
Yeah, and most teams chant back at them, "Shove your bubbles up your ass."
Yeah.
And yeah, they have bubbles blowing around the ground. I don't know. It's a fucking London thing.
It's weird.
Bubble and squeaking.
No, I thought it was from a musical, though. "I'm Forever Blowing Bubbles." I thought there might be is it like Carousel or something? But again, I think it's just bubble and squeak, isn't it? I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean it's just one of those things, and the teams some teams just have songs associated to them, like Liverpool have "You'll Never Walk Alone" by Jerry and the Pacemakers. Fuck knows why, but
they're from Liverpool.
Yeah. Well, no, I know that bit, but I don't know why I don't know what the sentiment that song has. I'm sure if I asked anyone, they'd probably be able to give me an answer.
It's like someone said the other day to me, "Why do wrestling matches when they go one fall? Why do we all go one fall?" It's just one of those things. It's been lost to the age of time.
Mm-hmm.
It's the towel thing that Boston ice hockey or basketball do, where they spin the towel around.
Oh, the rally towels.
Pittsburgh,
Steelers. Yeah. It's just weird shit that sports fans do, I guess.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Yeah. I've never understood it either. I prefer it at the halftime shows when they put wrestling music on.
Arsenal do that, don't they? They come out to wrestling music and they play wrestling music during the halftime.
Yeah, much better.
I think it's University of Virginia. Their college football team comes out to Enter Sandman by Metallica.
And they all smash beer cans into their heads as they're coming down.
No, the entire stadium is singing to the song, and they're so loud you can hear them over the song. Is awesome. Nice. Yeah. Really cool. Yeah. Ted goes in to shakes Nate's hand after they all march out, and he tells him, "Let's have fun out there." Nate doesn't say a word. Who's Nate's assistant?
Disco.
That's it. I couldn't remember his name.
I may be called Disco, but I'm not here to party.
Yeah. Oh, man. So the game is on. Zorro makes the save, and it's revealed in the call that he wants to be called Van Damme now. Arlo wants to know why, and Chris tells him they'll have to dive into his childhood for that answer. Weird comeback. Jamie takes his shot, leaving Zava wide open, and doesn't pass. He misses, and Zava runs up. He's going, for Zava! And he's like pointing to himself, you know. Jamie takes and let's see, West Ham scores, and Ted is trying to coach his guys, and Nate makes an adjustment, and he's causing the Hammers to score again. He's making adjustments like calling signals. Jay, what is this? Because he's just signaling a play. Is that what he's doing?
It'll be just like signaling a play. You tend to see it a lot with usually more like when players are taking corners and stuff like that. Obviously, just because you're in a loud stadium, you can't necessarily hear anything. So at least if there's like a sort of hand signal or something, then the player's gonna know, oh yeah, this is what we're doing. Usually with corners, you'll see either like they'll, depending on like what kind of corner they're taking, the player's either gonna like hold both their arms up, or like put their hands across the chest or something like that, just to signal like, oh, this is what I'm gonna do. And it's just a way as well of communicating what you're gonna do without letting the team without kind of telegraphing it to the other team.
If I want you to hit a bunt, I'll touch my belt buckle. Not once, not twice, but twice. Yes.
What is that from?
It's Mr. Burns in The Simpsons, isn't it? With the baseball episode. Yeah. It's the same thing as that. It's the fingers for fastballs sort of thing, isn't it? It's just something that you've worked out between you that no one else can. Yeah.
Get rid of those sideburns.
Yes.
This whole time, Rupert has been gesturing back to Rebecca. He can't help himself, looking back over his shoulder, doing whatever he can to unnerve her, and it's working. Halftime, the guys are going into the hall, into the locker room. Ted sees Rebecca down the hall and tells Roy and Beard to be right back. They say, what are we supposed to tell the guys? Ted says, I don't know, surprise me. He talks to Rebecca, who tells him she believes in him and she wants him to be himself and have fun. Then it's clear that her anxiety is through the roof, and she's a bit crazy at the moment. She grabs him by the shoulders and says, I believe in you, Ted. And he says, and it's intense.
It's intense.
Hair kind of like almost meddling in this situation, like the undoing, because Ted isn't there to give the team talk. Yep. So Beard and Roy have then took over it, and the whole thing just backfires.
Yeah. But it's her just stood in the hall. Like, remember, this is supposed to be fun at him as well as he walks off.
Oh, she's so great. I love her.
Yeah, she's giddy. She's giddy with panic. Ted goes in the locker room, and Roy and Beard are showing the Nate footage to the team. He asks if this is the surprise. Roy says, the team was catatonic. Now look at them. They're killers. Beard agrees and says, frankly, Ted, sometimes that's good. I got to be honest with you guys. Before I knew what happened next, I was 100% on board with this. Because I thought, these guys need to know what that guy did to them, man. Like,
oh, they're raging. Yeah.
They had the right idea, but they did it at the wrong time. Like, if they had shown that, like, the week before, and then you got to make these fuckers, you got to beat these fuckers to show them why we believe. Yeah. But not
when you're
then.
2-0 down. When
you're 2-0 down, you're already like fed up because you're losing.
Yeah.
And
literally, they're about 10 before they go back out. They're about 10 seconds from pulling like Will to pieces just for bloodlust. It's
They when they take the pitch after the second half or after the halftime.
They all come out and they're just glaring at Nate.
Yeah. Even Jamie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Nate has soiled himself.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, well, Nate's like really smug, isn't he, on the touchline? And then he like looks at the team. He's like, oh, God, they know.
Yeah. Yep. And that's when Tom and was proven wrong, along with Beard and Roy, because this was a horrible idea. Because the only thing that AFC Richmond squad does is rack up one penalty after another.
Oh, it's like 3 red cards, is it?
3 red
cards.
is tied for the record of the most red cards given to one team in a game.
Wow. That was going to be my next question was how bad has it ever gotten in a game that you know of?
Well, the one that comes to mind where it was 3 was Newcastle, where one of the players got sent off for a handball where it's comedic genius. Like the ball hits his hand and he instantly goes down holding his balls. And he's like, "Oh, my ball!" And he just gets sent off for being a dickhead.
Wow.
And then, like 30 minutes later, two of Newcastle's players started fighting one another.
What?
Yeah. So they both got sent off because they were basically like trying to rip each other to pieces. And then
wow,
the player who'd been sent off before was apparently in the dressing room, just like, "What's happening? Why are you here?"
Wow.
And apparently as well, the manager then said, "I'll fight all of you," to the team.
Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the worst I can think of. Funnily enough, I watched the program about the best sending offs ever, and that was number 1 because it was just like the most chaotic game of football I've ever seen in my life.
Lovely stuff.
We see in the pub, Jeremy is not happy. He says, "We're playing like Italians." And Bass says, "I know, it's awesome." Because, they're young guys. Guys like to see smash mouth football, right? So Arlo says, "It's getting a touch spicy out there." Chris says, "Spicy, Arlo. This is vintage Vindaloo." So,
but yeah, everyone's just going in. Like,
yeah.
Late tackles, studs up tackles, like they're out to hurt people at this point. And it's not the West Ham team's fault. It's Nate's fault. The anger is misdirected 100% to the wrong people. Like they could have seriously injured people. I know it's not real, but like, yeah.
Also, Zava's right. After the match, Zorro wasn't sending off. He didn't do anything wrong.
No, he didn't. I thought that
he won the ball.
Yeah.
He got the ball. Van Damme, sorry. Yeah, he got the ball. He just wiped out the player as well.
Yeah, but yeah, all the rest of the sending offs and like the fouls. I think the only person who doesn't or we don't see is Jamie going in hard and stuff.
No, Jamie and Zava are both trying to like just with. Well, it's interesting because obviously they said about the Italian thing, and Zava's come from the Italian league and he looks fucked off. So obviously, like,
he's used to this.
He's used to it, but also he doesn't want to be there for like that game because he's just got away from that shit.
They did you guys notice after the game was over and they lose 4-1 that of course not only does Nate walk away, doesn't even give Ted eye contact, just walks away even though Ted's going in for a handshake. One of the players from West Ham has taken his shirt off, and you can tell is wanting to do a swap with Zava, and Zava just waves him off and keeps walking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
is that a thing that happens in English football with the trading of the shirts? Is that something you see quite often, or no?
Yeah, usually it's more after big games, like cup finals or like the last game of the season. You'll see it, but it does happen quite a lot.
And it's Zava as well. They'd want a Zava shirt.
Yeah. Yeah, you tend to find, like, for example, if like it's a cup game and there's like a team who's like in the league below and they're playing against a team with like a megastar player, you're gonna see like the striker from that team kind of approach, or like the person who plays like their equivalent in the other team will usually like approach the other player to try and swap shirts with them. But yeah, it does happen quite a lot.
Yeah, it happens here too. Mostly NBA, I think, is where we see it quite a bit happen. Arlo says it went from evenly matched to unevenly matched to light a match on the fire and put it into a can of petrol. So Chris says that second half should have come with a trigger warning. What a great line that is. Arlo says...
he says that they've been playing angry, dirty, and ugly. Which
Yes.
is the name of Zava's 3 youngest kids.
So it's angry, dirty, ugly, and Smingus.
Spingus
Right.
Dingus. Yeah.
Smingus
And it's
dingus.
Mingus.
Rebecca's upset and frustrated. Keela looks back at Barbara and Jack just to ask if they've had fun. Barbara says the violence was quite entertaining, wasn't it? And she just chuckles.
Barbara's
Zava's
a
a-
maniac.
She
I
is.
fucking love Barbara. She's like easily my favorite character in this season.
Zava's interviewed next, and he says sending off Van Damme was a mistake. He played with passion. Passion is a word we use when we talk about love. It's also what we use to describe a crime. Sometimes it is also a fruit. Hey, God, this guy's a fucking moron, dude. I'm telling you. Fucking moron.
He's brilliant, though. It's just done in such a deadpan, wise guru voice, and it's saying nothing. It's
Saying nothing.
It's brilliant.
This is where Rebecca, bumps into someone, causing her to stop, and she sees Rupert with a woman that is not his wife, playing a game of what we in this country call grab ass.
Grab
That's
ass. Yep.
Essentially, what he's doing. Ted goes in the locker room to talk. Yeah. Ted goes in the locker room to talk to Beard and Roy. Roy says, "We fucked up." Beard says,
They're
"We never
both
corrected."
sitting there like they're outside the headmaster's office waiting to get done. Like it's like, oh.
Yeah, they're waiting for their
Overcorrecting.
punishment. Waiting for their punishment. Jay, I don't mean to keep asking you such vague questions without being able to get specific. But in my head, I'm wondering, like, and I know the answer to this is probably it's based on the club, but like, how much control would 2 guys in their spots be? And I guess the answer to that is how much would the coach let them have, I guess?
Yeah, you're right. It's based on the club. Some managers will kind of want to like sort of have like oversee everything and want it's kind of like their choices they'll be making. Others have like a team of coaches where they'll be like different coaches like different assistant, like the assistant managers will do different like things and contribute in different ways. It just all depends on the manager really. So I think it's a lot more unique for Ted Lasso because obviously Ted doesn't have a clue. So he needs like his 2 tacticians to kind of help him out in this a lot of the time. And so it would be more. I think it's more of a Ted Lasso thing, really. But it's not to say that for sure that like coaching staff are there to kind of like help with tactics as much as the manager would want them to.
Yeah, because otherwise, why are they there? They're not there to just get a paycheck. They should be contributing something, right? So yeah,
absolutely.
Makes sense. They want them both. They both want Ted to just basically rip them in half, and Ted's not going to do it. He says, "You tried something new, it didn't work. Big whoop. I will take that thumb drive one of y'all's got, however. Shake it off, fellas. A lot of football left this season." Roy says, "What a fucking asshole." Beard says, "I know." Nate is interviewed next. He tells him it was easier than he thought it would be. He was put on the spot about not shaking Ted's hand afterwards. And he actually generally doesn't realize he didn't shake his hand. It doesn't look like that's a trying to fool the press kind of thing. He generally seems to not realize that he didn't shake his hand. Yeah.
He instantly kind of shows remorse for it as well.
Yeah.
Where obviously like he goes, I need to go, and like he goes to actually try and find Ted to apologize to him.
Yeah.
And
which is a brave thing to do because he's going into the Lions' den there, isn't he, really? If he'd have bumped into any of the team.
Yeah.
That's a good call, Joe. Yeah, because the way they were glaring at him, I wouldn't go near them for sure.
I think Isaac would have just like ripped them in half.
Yeah.
He before he can get there,
he'd have chopped him in half.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Rupert's assistant stops him, hands him something for the bones and honey. You guys remember
this god awful bar?
It's a place we saw on Beard's Night Out. So nice little callback. So this has to do with the celebration that Rupert mentioned to him earlier in the episode. Rebecca goes to the parking garage and sees Bex, and they're having a little bit of small talk. Rupert comes out and says, "Oh, Rebecca, my dear, so sorry for your loss." Ultimate shitbag. Rebecca says, "Come on, old man, it's way past your bedtime." And then we visibly see Rupert rolling his eyes at this. Like you can tell he's had enough of this new wife thing. So Rebecca says to Rupert, she whispers to him, "I saw you with your assistant. Your daughter deserves better, and so does Beck. Stop fucking around." Really nice.
The look on his face, though, is like, oh,
yeah.
She can hold that over me now. It doesn't matter what I do.
It's like, even though Richmond lost the actual game of football, Rebecca kind of like won the day with like that moral victory over Rupert.
Yeah.
Like she got the last laugh over him by saying that to him.
Yeah, it's a good call. Yeah.
Again, like, we know Rupert's a scumbag. He married a girl just to stick one over on his ex-wife.
He did.
Yeah.
He did.
Speaks like a Victorian villain, my dear. Again, if he could, he'd tie women to train tracks. I swear to God.
He's missing the top hat and the cane. Right?
Yeah, walking about like this with a cape. Yeah.
I mean, that jacket's very Dick Dastardly, isn't it?
Yeah.
Dastardly.
Yeah.
And Nate's Muttley.
What was the villain? Snidely Whiplash? Wasn't that it?
Yes.
The old Hanna-Barbera cartoons? Yeah.
Yes. Same voice actor, I believe, as Dick Dastardly.
Is it?
I may be wrong, but I'm fairly sure it is.
That's
There's about
awesome.
8 people who did all the voices from our childhoods. Like,
It's true. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Keely's with Jack, and Shandy comes up to make everything awkward as always because she's good at it. She's bragging about changing the bio line on Banter. It now reads, "Want to bang a celebrity?" Shandy did it. She's bragging that she's tripled the subscribers in an hour. Keely is visibly upset and asks her to change it back. Yeah. Just low class, like, low class thing to do. So we see this party, right? Nate walks in. He's applauded for winning the game. Rupert congratulates him in front of everyone, which is nice. He tells him,
It's not.
Well,
it's a. Here is my, my pet
Here's
monkey.
my golden egg laying goose.
Yeah. It's awful. And Nate, being Nate, would hate that as well. Like, because it's people in the actual real world doing it in real time. It's not someone on Twitter. It's not like.
But it's also a room full of fake people.
It is all a room full of. It's the Bones and Honey. It's full of. Where was he from? Cambridge. Yeah, it's full of.
Yeah.
Chinless knobheads.
Toffs and influences.
Yeah.
So Nate tells him, "Thank you, Mr. Mannion." And he corrects him, "No, please, Rupert."
Yeah. Well done, son.
Rupert says, "And Nathan, allow me to introduce Anastasia." Anastasia says, "Huge fan." Nate says, "Oh my God, you're famous." And she says, "So are you." Is this a real person or no?
I don't think so. I think she's like just like me. I'll double check now.
I assumed it was a sex worker that Rupert had got him as a reward, knowing that Nathan, because he's basically trying to make a mini version of him, isn't he?
Well, he said you're famous. I assume maybe in their world she's an actress or something. I don't know.
I think she's meant to be a model.
I would have assumed, but again, she could just be like a very high class call girl sort of thing. Because he's replaced Nate's car, hasn't he?
That's true.
You see what I mean? He's just trying to make a tiny version of him.
Yeah,
tiny version of him. It's his mini me. Maybe this is more of a Dr. Evil and mini me thing than it is the Emperor and Vader. So
I was going to say it's more Dr. Mephisto from South Park and that little Kevin thing that he used to have with him.
Wonderful.
But I also love the fact that when he when Nate drinks that martini, he immediately spits it back out because it's just raw booze in it in a martini.
That's a callback to season 1 too.
Yeah. But it's just he waits until she's not looking and goes bleh, and just spits it back out and puts it down and leaves because he knows this isn't his world. This isn't where he should be. Like he should be. He's always been in the locker room celebrating with the lads. Like he's always. It's a hollow victory for him. Yeah, he may have won, but at what cost? He's now going to hang out with Rupert and all these hangers on and yes men. That's not life.
Now I can't get the image of Chef out of my head going, what the hell is that? When he's looking at Kevin. Because in the middle of the conversation, he stops. Wait a minute. What is that? Like they can't figure out what he just sits there and looks around. Man, now it's in my head. So Nace sees Rupert carrying on with his assistant, which is, here we go with that. We're back to that again. Roy goes to Jamie's and tells him that they're going to go get another workout in before dinner. And when Jamie opens the door, he's running in place with a headlamp on. He's ready to go. He runs right by Roy, who turns his own light on. All right. So, Jamie's dialed in. That's nice.
Again, I think this has something to do as well with seeing how Zava, past to me, he wants to be better than Zava. I think this is it. And he's like, I have to put again, it's just another growing moment for Jamie of, I have to put the work in.
But also as well, like Jamie's like not even like the prime of his career yet, whereas Zava's like in the sort of like twilight of his.
Yeah.
So in Jamie's head, he's probably thinking, well, I don't know how long this guy's going to be here for. I'm going to surpass him anyway, but I want to do it now.
While he's here
to show that I'm just as good, if not better.
We see
a nice little moment between Joy or Raimi.
Sam Raimi?
When you portmanteau like Benefit.
I know.
Yeah.
Ted Raimi. So Ted's in his flat, and we hear the commentary on the TV, and Gary says that was hard to watch, Thierry. West Ham's domination today saw Ted Lasso being totally exposed by his former assistant Nate Shelley. And Thierry says, Gary, I love this quote from a Chinese philosopher: "When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. When the student is truly ready, the teacher will disappear." I love that, actually. Really well done. He's in his flat, and his hair is just beginning.
He's had a couple of whiskeys.
Yeah.
It's
half a bottle on the table.
He's not full on, ruffled, but it's
not yet.
Teased.
He's a little bit disheveled.
Yeah.
Is
this where he's looking at his phone as well? At the messages from Yeah. And it's just the same message.
That's when Rebecca comes into the office to check, see if he's all right.
Yeah.
Because it was just one of them. It was like, I bet Michelle got more interesting messages than a template.
But then, he's looking. Doesn't he look at the? No, he's just looking over at the laptop, isn't he? And debating.
He's looking at the Lego pitch, including the figurines of himself and Nate, and he FaceTimes Michelle, and Michelle is saying she's sorry about the match. And she then tells him Henry's not here, he's at a birthday party. And Ted finally, tells her how he's feeling. Says, I know that you and I aren't, together anymore, and I respect that. This whole thing with you and Dr. Jacob really ticks me off. And I'm upset that we didn't even really ever talk about it before it all started. And I understand that me saying all this might be the wrong thing to do, but I just feel like not saying it wouldn't be the right thing either, because we got to raise this little boy together. We're stuck with each other. We're going to share grandkids. I love you, Michelle, and I love Henry, and I love our family, no matter what that looks like, okay? And she says, of course, because that's the comeback he wants, is of course.
Yeah. Ted's bared his soul. Like, this is the first time he's ever really kind of let all of this information out.
Terrible.
And she just kind of goes, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. May as well just say whatever. Sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sweet. Duly noted. Yeah. Roger, Roger.
Yeah. The Star Wars references continue. Well done. Ted says, I'll talk to y'all soon. Have a good night. Tell Henry I love him. He closes the laptop and we end on a shot of Michelle with a smile on her face after this because, you know, she feels pretty good about completely disregarding everything he said because she's evil.
I think she's kind of took it all on board and that's why she's smiling.
Maybe, yeah.
I think she was waiting for Ted to say this.
Yeah, like literally one of the things she says is Ted's always kind of hiding behind like being like sort of chirpy, making all the puns, Ted Lasso. He doesn't really kind of like show like a sort of what's really going on, and that him doing that, and even though it's not yet anyway, going to like sort of do anything to sort of mend the relationship, it's kind of the starting point that you wanted.
That's fair. We hear Don't Think Twice, It's All Right by Peter, Paul, and Mary, and that's what plays us out. And Their Kids is episode 4. Done. In the can. Over and done with. Told you it was a good one.
It was a good one.
We don't lie to our audience. We lie to other people, but never to our audience. So we're like Paul Heyman. We lie to our locker room, but never to our fans. I'm just saying.
Don't owe people money either.
That's right.
Our
So, Joe, biggest takeaways from this episode. What you got?
It's Nate, isn't it? It's Nate realizing that he may have burnt bridges that he doesn't think can be repaired, and for what? For a lie. When he wins, he'll be the number one favorite plaything. If he doesn't win, it'll be back to Mr. Mannion. Like he doesn't have that. He's got all the power and money that he wants now, but he's got no one to share it with. All the people that helped get him there are gone, and he's left with the Emperor essentially. And it's him. It's the slow realization of, oh,
yeah. He's not the support system that Ted ever was and ever could be, honestly. I mean, Jay, to that point, like in a perfect world where Nate left of his own accord because it was time, because he wanted a new challenge, and because there was an opening and Rupert gave him a shot, a lot of ifs, ridiculously, I know, he wouldn't necessarily need validation, Jay, as much as he needs all the time. Maybe he would have grown as a man, but obviously he's still the same kid he was when he was there. So takeaways for you, Jay, similar to what Joe said?
Yeah, I think the kind of like overarching theme of this episode is sort of like getting on the path to redemption. Obviously, like Nate trying to like become him, the person he wants to be, not the person he's become. Ted's trying to do whatever he can to sort of like save his life from crumbling around him. And even like little things like obviously Jamie trying to surpass Zava, those bits with Keeley with like realizing that Shandy's sort of not really the best person to be working for her, and obviously Rebecca as well, like going through the whole like crisis of wanting to beat Rupert and then realizing there's bigger, more important things than winning a game of football.
Yeah, I mean, it's as we said when we kicked this one off, Nate's, sudden, was it crisis of conscience, I guess you could say, is came from out of nowhere. But as audience, we're happy to see that there's still a human underneath all that nonsense and, white hair that's happening. So, but yeah, it to see all that coming back around, and trust me, folks, if you've not yet followed through with all of season 3, if you're watching along with us, then you don't know what's coming, but things tend to possibly all work themselves out. We don't want to give it away for you or anything nutty, but I'll just say that, yeah, there's a possibility that things may work out here. But, we shall see. Don't want to ruin anything for anybody.
As
Well,
we
kids,
said
there you
before, it's Ted Lasso. No one is beyond redemption except
Yep.
Rupert,
except Rupert.
Except-
Jeez.
because everyone needs one, antagonist, and yeah,
He's it. Yeah. And man, all that money and all that influence and all that power could do so many great things in the world. But nope.
No, he'd be on one of those rockets to go into orbit. Like,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. With the rest of the rich white guys going to space just because they got nothing left to do here. So might as well build a rocket,
or a submarine.
or a submarine. I'm just saying.
Submarines are the most evil of all the transports.
Powered by a Logitech gamepad. Yeah. See, that's why your robot didn't work, Homer. Yeah.
That's good. I was hoping for the old school Atari 2600 big rubber controller with the red button.
It couldn't have done any worse, could it? A Kempston
No.
joystick, yeah. That's knackered from playing too much track and field. Yeah.
Yes.
One of the
References for
doesn't work.
nobody.
Yeah. I played my fair share of Pong, buddy, let me tell you. So,
right.
yeah, for sure. Well, kids, there you have it. Episode 4 in the can. Thanks as always for supporting the show and for following us along with us on social media. Remember, at Two Nations Pod on all of our socials. You can follow the website on the website at boingstudios.com. You can follow this show. You can follow our own podcast, the three of us individually. Go there and you'll find all the links. Everything's updated. Everything's good to go. So go there at boingstudios.com. Bookmark that sucker and stay in touch with us, folks. You know how to reach us. And just, again, follow us at Two Nations Pod. Tell your friends. Tell your enemies. They need something good in their life. We'll give it to them. There you go. So thanks again for watching, for downloading, for listening, subscribing. And I think that's going to do it for us. For Joe and Jay, I'm Tom. See you next time, kids.